Hey y'all, and welcome back to the Wannabe Author, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the publishing world, traditional, self-publishing, and more. I'm your host, Taryn Christine, an author navigating the turns and plot twists of getting books into readers' hands. Here we get real about the wins, the rejections, and the lessons learned along the way. Whether you're chasing an agent, going self-published, or just curious how it all works, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey y'all, and welcome to the first episode of Season 2 of the Wannabe Author. I am so happy you're here. If you're new here, my name is Taryn Christine. I'm your humble host. And to give a little spiel about how last season went and what to expect for this season, last season was mainly focused on the journey. I got to discuss with a lot of authors about their writing and publishing journeys, and we will continue to explore those themes in this season, but we're also going to explore themes such as conversation, connection, networking, all the things. And today's guest was just a perfect fit to start the season off. This guest is a debut author this year. Her book was released earlier this year and it's called Blood Beneath the Snow. It's a heart-pounding romantasy following a rebellious princess who must compete to the death against her siblings for the crown to ensure justice, while fighting her feelings for the country's most powerful enemy. Now, the conversation I got to have with this author was absolutely perfect. We got to talk about examples of authors we look up to that really show off that connection and conversation, uplifting, and then also working with teams and the dedication it takes to become a published author. I am so excited for you to listen and to learn from this author the way I did. Without further ado, I am so excited to introduce you all to Alexandra Kennington. Alex, hi, welcome to the Wannabe Author.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's an honor to have you here with us. Okay, before we get started, I love to ask my guests, what are you currently reading?
Ooh, I just finished a book yesterday. I am reading, I don't know what the series is called, but it was the second one in the series. It's called Fiasco by Constance Fay. It's a sci-fi romance, so it almost felt like romantasy but science fiction, and I really loved it. It was super good.
That's my jam. I think
Yeah,
I need to add that to my TBR. That sounds
yeah,
fabulous.
definitely
Good.
do. It was great.
Love that. All right, let's dive into this.
Okay.
So, I'm so excited to have you on because I'm local to Utah.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I kind of got acquainted with who you are, your book, and then I looked into some of your YouTube videos of your journey, and it just sounded full of hard work, inspiring. So I thought you'd be such a fabulous guest to have for the listeners to hear from who are working to become authors themselves. So I'm excited to start with asking you your origin story. Like, what brought you to writing this book, sitting down and being like, you know what, I'm going to publish this? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a super good question. I had been writing for a really long time before I even started working on what became my debut novel. It had always been something that I kind of told myself, I want to be an author. That's what I want to do. Whenever people would ask me growing up, that's what I would say. And then I got to college and things got busy. I had written before then, but I never really finished anything. And I remember finally just sitting down and thinking, like, okay, I'm ready to be serious about this. I'm ready to actually get something done. And there was like a little local writing conference. And I don't even remember who was talking, but somebody was talking about, if you want to be an author and you're thinking about all the publishing stuff, like that's great, but you have to actually finish a book to get there. Like the best advice that they had to give was, before you even think about the other stuff, just take something from beginning to end. And I had never done that before. I was one of those people who was really great at writing like the opening chapters of a story, and then I'd get bored and just kind of abandon it. And so I remember I had gotten this idea for what would be my debut novel, and just as I was thinking about it, I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this, then I need to make sure that I really do it and I get it from beginning to end without stopping in the middle. So that was really my goal going into it. Was, I don't care how bad it is. I don't care if it makes any sense. I just need to get something out there. And then to my own surprise, I was actually able to do it. It was the first book I had ever finished. It was really bad. Um, I think that's just kind of part and parcel with with figuring out how to be a writer. And so I went back, and because I had finished it, I loved it so much, and I remember getting to the end and thinking I already know how this can be better, and so I just kept going back and going over it again and again and again until finally it turned into something that I was like, oh, okay, I think this might actually be ready to move forward, and that was really kind of I think what kickstarted it for me was actually finishing that and thinking, I listened to all these inspiring people talking about their writing journeys, but I actually have to get out there and do it. If I keep talking about it forever, then it's never going to happen.
Absolutely. I love that. Like, the first draft is always so terrible, but
Yeah,
I think that's perfect advice that you took. My favorite advice, when people are like, how do you finish a book or whatever? It's like you just have to tell yourself the story. You're just getting it out there. So I
yeah,
think that's perfect. Love that. Thank you for sharing.
yeah.
Okay. Regarding your writing routine, do you have any writing routines? Are you a pantser, outliner? Do you have to ingest any certain content? Tell us what it looks like. Paint the picture.
Yeah, I am definitely a plotter. I very much admire people who can write without an outline. I am not one of those people. I have to sit there and plan it out. And it's funny because half the time I don't even end up actually following the outline because I'll get to a point and I'm like, wait, I just thought of something way more interesting to stick here. But usually, like writing out what I can beforehand and just kind of giving it a broad sketch of like, okay, this is where I'm going really helps keep me motivated, I think, and like going in the right direction at the very least. So I'm not just all over the place. So yeah, over the years, I've been very much even more of a plotter than I was before. Sometimes it kind of just depends. Like sometimes I can get really close to the story in the outline and feel like, okay, I can figure out plot holes now before I even get to expanding it. Um, so I'm definitely a plotter. And then I don't know, for writing routine, I don't have anything super specific that I do. I like to listen to music while I write, but it's nothing specific. It's usually whatever songs I'm hyperfixating on at the moment, just over and over. Um, but I think it's interesting. I don't really have like a place or a time or anything that I have to write because most of my journey to becoming an author involved just stealing writing time wherever I could. I have, since I graduated college, I've worked a full time job. I had my child when I was really young, like fresh out of college, and I just never really had a ton of time to sit and dedicate to writing for a while. And so it was a lot of, okay, I have 15 minutes. What can I type on my notes app in 15 minutes? And okay, I'm driving somewhere, like, wait, I had an idea. I'm going to dictate it to my phone while I drive to make sure that I'm getting it all down, and just little things like that. And I think that has been nice because it's helped me be pretty flexible when it comes to like my actual writing routine now. I feel like I can kind of just pick up and go. And I do still, I mean, I still work full time, and I just still find myself just kind of stealing writing time on lunch breaks and in between projects at work, just whenever I have a second of downtime. So yeah, I think that's really it for me.
I love that. I think, well, obviously, the writing life is romantic in itself of creating these worlds and stuff, but sometimes you have to realize a lot of authors, artists, they're all like, they're being moms or they're working
Mhm.
full-time jobs. And so I love that you just have to steal the time you can. Okay. Now, I'd love for you to tell the listeners about your publishing journey and what the most surprising aspect of the journey was for you.
Ooh. Okay, my publishing journey was, I think, pretty standard, which sounds like very normal. And it was very normal in the sense that at no point was I like, oh my gosh, like, wow, this is happening so fast. It took plenty of time. Let's see, I think I spent probably 2 years writing and editing the book that became my debut. And then I queried literary agents for about 9 months. And I was actually like on my very last, I was about to pull it from querying because I didn't think anyone was going to sign. And I decided, okay, well, I'll send one last submission as kind of like a farewell to this book, and that submission started the chain of events that led me to signing with my agent, which was which is kind of crazy to think about. So that took 9 months, and I remember thinking, okay, that felt like a really long time. I hopefully I've paid my dues in time enough that I can get the rest of this over with pretty quickly. But that was not the case. We took the book out on submission in January of 2023, and I ended up getting an offer on it in January of 2024. So it was a full year that was out on submission to editors, and I think halfway down the line, it was originally a young adult book, and halfway down the line, I remember like Fourth Wing had started kind of getting a lot of hype, and lots of other adult romantasy books were kind of coming onto the scene. And I remember asking my agent, I said, "Do you think if I revise this to be adult that it would sell faster than it is now?" Because I feel like YA has gotten a lot less like big in the past few years, not in a bad way, just a lot of those readers that were really voracious are now realizing, oh, there's stuff in adult that I like too. And she said, I mean, well, you're welcome to try it. And I feel like I got very lucky with that book. It was a YA book, but I think a lot of YA fantasy is written with themes that can transfer to adult stories very well. Um, and the characters weren't like I don't know, they were just acting like people. It wasn't like this is a teenage specific story. It was just a story where they happened to be teenagers. So I took the YA version and put it aside, and then I made a version that was adult, where I made a few tweaks and changed everybody's age, and it still felt like it flowed really well. And so for a while we were sending out both versions to editors, and it was just kind of a matter of, okay, well, let's see who bites, if anybody, first. And I ended up getting an offer on the adult version of the manuscript, which I was really happy about. I ended up just really liking that a lot more than the YA version. Not that I didn't like the YA version, but at that point, I think I had kind of transitioned to reading a lot more new adult, and so it was nice to kind of step into, okay, wow, this definitely feels like where the book is meant to be. So I ended up getting an offer on that, and yeah, it was just kind of a whirlwind from there. But I don't know that I'd call it surprising, but I think the waiting and the waiting and the waiting kind of took me by surprise more than it should. I don't know. I think there are lots of people out there with the super quick, like, I got a book deal in 3 days kind of stories. And I think everybody wants that to be them. And it makes it hard to feel like, oh, well, am I doing something wrong? Is the book not good enough? And the truth really is just that it's a crowded industry with a lot of people who are really overworked and who don't have enough time on their plate to acquire every book they like. Um, so yeah, I don't know that anything really truly surprised me necessarily, because I'd been reading about publishing for so long and researching it, and I felt like I knew all of the facts about how publishing worked and all of other people's experiences. It caught me off guard a little bit how emotional it felt to be like in the thick of it. I think it's easy to look at publishing and say, okay, well, that's a business, versus writing is a creative endeavor. But then trying to mesh those together and understand that the rejection from the business side, it can really feel like rejection on the creative side. And so I think balancing that and figuring out, okay, how do I handle this? How do I emotionally get through this without it just ruining the love of writing that I had started with, was kind of its own journey. But yeah, it ended up working out, and I'm really grateful for that.
Love that. Love that. I think that is such a probably not surprising because everybody talks about it, but unexpected until you're in the moment of how long it takes.
Yeah.
But I love that you mentioned the emotional aspect of it, or you're practically bleeding on these pages, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's a product to be sold and bought and stuff. So I think it's a great point. Okay. Um, what do you wish someone would have told you when you were an aspiring author, just writing your book and dreaming about publishing one day?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think a lot of things. I don't know. I think there's a lot of talk about luck in the industry and how luck and timing really play a role in whether or not you get published. And I think that while those are important conversations, it's important to also talk about how you can't get to the point where luck and timing matter unless you work really hard first. Because it really is just a lot of hard work to get anywhere a lot of the time in both traditional publishing and self-publishing. It's it's a lot of work to create something that takes so much time and so much energy, and then be willing to step back and say, okay, now how can I make it better? And sometimes the answer to how can I make it better is throw it in the garbage and start over, which is never a fun thing to realize. So yeah, I think that a lot of people, when you get to like that point of publishing, everyone is talking about like, okay, well, we're all at the level where we've worked hard. But I think that it's also helpful to remember that the working hard is super important, and that really, I don't know, I think too, like if you love the working hard, then you can do anything, because that's the part that you end up going back to over and over again. And like publishing itself feels, I don't know, it can feel kind of glamorous when you look at it from the outside, but really what it comes back to is, do you love the writing? Do you love the work? Do you love tearing apart your story and making it better? Because if you do, I think that helps, I don't know, like not longevity in the industry necessarily, but it makes it easier to look at it all and to say, okay, well, I can keep going.
Absolutely. I think it was I had Penn Cole on not too long ago,
Oh,
and she was
I love
talking
her.
about how it am I going to still be writing if it's not going to be selling to
Mm,
readers? Like, and I think that's such an important aspect, and that's what probably fuels like this need to work hard. And I think that's something I've noticed a lot in you just from being a very silent follower on social media and stuff, is just the hard work and the dedication to your work. And so I think that was a beautiful thing to say. Thank you.
thank you.
Have you ever thought about giving up? And if so, what kept you going?
Oh, absolutely. I I don't know. I mean, it's hard when you have a million other things that you could be doing, and I don't know, writing can kind of feel like a pipe dream a lot of the time, that unreachable goal. It's almost like, okay, well, why bother if it's going to take so much effort to get there and you might not even get there in the end. Yeah, there have been a lot of times that I've asked myself, am I wasting my time? Is it better to just kind of set this to the side? Because as much as I love writing, I also have a lot of other responsibilities, and sometimes I've wondered, do I need to put that aside and invest more into my 9 to 5 career and be trying to move up there? Um, because writing is one of those things that it really does take up a ton of time. There's no easy way to get around that aspect of it, and I wouldn't want to anyway. And so the question of, okay, do I have time and energy to continue devoting to this, um, especially when it's been a long time and you have a work that you love that's just, it feels like it's not going anywhere. That can be really tough. And I don't know, I remember getting a bunch of rejections. I had gone on sub in January, and around November, I think we were getting to the end of our editor list, and I was kind of feeling like, okay, I'm a little over this whole routine. Um, and I remember I told my agent, I was like, I think I kind of want to step back and like not hear about rejections immediately anymore. Maybe we could catch up on like once a month, and you could update me or so, because it was just taking so much out of me. Um, and I remember kind of sitting back and thinking, well, do I want to write something new again? Because the common advice is, while you're waiting, write the next thing. And so I had the book that was out on submission. I'd written another book that was also out on submission, and then I'd written a third. And I was kind of like, all right, I don't know if any of these are going to go anywhere. And kind of facing that reality of, I have worked as hard as I can, and really the luck and the timing just might not ever happen. Um, and yeah, I thought about it a lot, about whether or not it was worth it to keep going. And it's funny to look back now, because if I had known how close I was, because it was 2 months later that I ended up getting the offer on my debut. If I had known how close I was, I would have easily kept going. And so it's just hard, because it's impossible to know how close you are unless you do keep going. So I don't know, I told myself that if I needed to pivot, that I could pivot, but I didn't want to leave writing itself. And I knew that. And so I had decided that my next writing project would be something new. Like I was gonna I think switch to short stories for a bit was my plan. I needed something that was like quick and that didn't feel like the emotional commitment of writing a whole novel that wouldn't go anywhere. But um, I got busy. I didn't end up starting any short stories even before I got the offer because it was just so close and I didn't have any idea. And yeah, it's just like the luck and timing are crazy and sometimes you have to be really willing to stick it out for those aspects of it, I think too.
Absolutely. I think that's probably the most, what is it? And not infuriating, but like soul crushing feelings is
Yeah.
it could be any day now that you get that offer,
Mm-hmm.
or it could be years.
Yeah.
So you're just sitting there like, okay, how do I move forward with this? So
Yeah.
that it's a rough feeling, but I'm glad you stuck with it.
Me too.
We all are. Okay. Um, so this is now the second season of this podcast. In the first season, I really focused on the journey of the authors that I was meeting because I was going through my own journey of publication and stuff. So this season, I'm focusing a lot on connection, conversation, and how connections can kind of move us forward in the industry or improve
Yeah.
our writing. So I wanted to ask you, what is one conversation or exchange in your life or during this journey that has stuck with you? And it could be advice or something inspiring or just something that was maybe good criticism that helped you move forward
Yeah.
into your journey.
Ooh, that's such a good question. I feel like other writers have taught me so much as I've kind of stepped into the industry. I think about long before I was published, I think it was at that same writing conference I mentioned earlier. Someone, I don't remember who it was talking about how the people who become writers, by the time they start writing, they are usually beginner writers, but they're expert readers. And so an expert reader can read a beginner writer's manuscript and will think, well, this is terrible. So if you're a beginner writer and an expert reader, you often read your own work and think, well, this is terrible because I've read so much good work. I know what it's supposed to look like. And that can stop a lot of people. And I remember thinking, oh, that's me. And that really kind of gave me the motivation to keep going. That's one that I had. I remember having a conversation with, oh geez, I can't even remember her name. Um, but someone in one of the discords I'm in, someone was talking about like a difficult experience they'd had where they felt like another writer was being unkind, and she just said, just because people share your interests doesn't mean they share your values, and so taking the time to make sure that as you're meeting people in a new industry, you learn their values in addition to the shared commonality of interests, I think is super important. And then I think too, just about, I don't know, it's not even necessarily specific conversations, but I think about looking at the other writers around me and seeing how big established authors lift up people behind them. That's something that just really inspires me because I hope to do the same thing one day. I think about Penn Cole is in a Discord that I'm in, and I've never met anyone more generous with their time and their advice and their experience. She's just an absolute saint. And then I think about LJ Andrews, who is local to me. I did an event with her, and she went out of her way. I was there interviewing her for her book launch, and she went out of her way to tell everyone about how much she enjoyed my book and how she hoped they would read my book too. And that just really touched me because I don't know, like it sometimes feels like we're all scrabbling for the scraps at the table because publishing can, I don't know, cutthroat's not necessarily the right word, but it kind of feels cutthroat sometimes. And so just seeing people around me be so generous with their time and their advice and their energy and their willingness to uplift other people, that has been really inspiring for me too.
Love, love. And I'm going to piggyback off of what you said with Penn Cole because I completely agree. She's
Yeah,
one of my favorites.
she's great.
Sweet, sweet lady.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and actually, in regards to her, she did say something in our episode that we had. She said something along the lines of, "We can all have the same readers," and that's the beauty of this is we
Yeah.
can all have the same readers. Like readers can love so many different kinds of books, and so that's the way to go about this is to support one another because we all have the same readers, and it's not like we are it feels like we're fighting for scraps for some reason, and especially with publishing, but it doesn't have to be like that. And I think that helps give it a perspective to support everybody because we are sharing the same readers. So I love that. I just wanted to piggyback off of what you're saying.
I love that.
I love how it's turned into like this Pen Cole fan.
I know.
Page. I mean, how could it not? Love her. Yeah. Okay. Now, these are just the more fun, lighthearted questions, but outside of being an author, what is a fun fact about you that most people don't know?
Ooh. I don't know. I'm not that interesting. It's funny because usually the fun fact about myself is that I'm an author. And so it's interesting to think about it the other way around. Like, what's interesting about me? Okay, maybe a fun fact about me is that when I was in high school, I did color guard. So, like the flag people that marched with the band. Yeah, I did that for the whole time I was in high school.
I love that.
It's a lot of fun.
That's so cool.
I liked it, yeah.
I love it. Okay, what is your favorite trope to read or write in?
Ooh. I mean, I'm an enemies to lovers girly for sure. I also really like I like reading fake dating. I've never had an excuse to write fake dating yet, but I hope that one day I get to, because it's just something about two people fake dating just makes me kick my little feet, makes me so happy. I'm like, yes. Oh, anyway, I love fake dating, but
I love that. I can get behind that. Fake dating is fabulous. Yeah. Okay, Alex, what is next for you? Any teasers on future projects or events that you're going to be participating? Anything you want the readers to know about?
Yeah, my next published work will be the sequel to Blood Beneath the Snow. It's called Gods Beneath the Ice. Right now, we're planning to put that out in February of 2026. So that's what's next. That's the only like real contracted thing that I have coming up. But I have other stuff that I'm working on and sending to editors in the hopes that someone will pick it up. So always keeping my fingers crossed for that. In terms of events, I don't know. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm doing an event in Salt Lake next month. I think it's called the Smuttastic Book Fair. So it sounds like it's going to be fun. And then I will be at Romantasy Book Con in LA also in February next year. So yeah.
You busy gal. That is so exciting.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for you and your second book coming out, your future projects. You're killing it. Again, your hard work has been just so inspiring for me. And I know it will be for the listeners. Thank you for joining me today. Seriously, I'm so honored to have you here.
It was so great to meet you. And thank you again for having me.
Of course. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close out with the listeners, but I'd love to keep you for a second afterwards. But thank y'all for listening. We will see y'all next Thursday. Bye.